At the quarterback position, I am harsh and punitive. The media, again, tends to pander too often. I warned Cleveland about Johnny Manziel. Colin, you're overreacting. Uncle Colin was right. I warned you that Baker was good, but too immature. I was right on that, too, and Stefanski eventually showed him the door. Baker now has grown up. I like this Baker, but I was right. And I was right about Deshaun Watson. Creepy, cringy. That's not a leader at that position. So yesterday, Shedeur Sanders got caught speeding over 100 miles an hour. He's a quarterback. Mike Tomlin often says 2 is a trend. Can't screw up 3 or 4 times. 2 is a trend. Just 2 times. I'm not sure if I need 2 times when you're a young quarterback. 1 bad judgment turns me off. But I have now, in the last couple of months, 2 things that really turn me off with Shedeur Sanders, who I have championed. That cringy, awful, legendary draft room. Bro, you're a B prospect. You know, your dad's prime time, who led with his ego for years. You got to have a little self-awareness. I had more than one GM say, total turnoff. Come on, it's not the end of the world. It's a bad look. And now this. 100 miles an hour. Yep. All you fanboys, go ahead. Manziel, Baker, Deshaun Watson, defended it to the hilt on your Reddit account. Sorry. Don't minimize it. Don't pander. This is not good for a quarterback. Not good. As of today, and I've said this for years, I do not cling to opinions. New information, new opinion. I'm an airline pilot. We got a storm coming. Here's the latest radar. I'm changing my route, not flying headfirst into it. I don't think about him the same. There was a moment I thought Will Levis, about 4 months out from the draft, had a chance. And I turned on Will Levis when he started showing up like a bodybuilder, gun show. And I had 2 NFL coaches, both needing quarterbacks, who text me, got my number and text me. They're like, this is the exact conversation we are having in our building right now. 2 NFL coaches.
Okay. So let's talk about this, because there's actually a really, really interesting conversation to have here. And I hope you follow it the whole way through, because this is one of those really interesting conversations that I want to unpack in many different ways and look at it from just every possible lens we can, rather than just make a definitive conclusion. So we're going to talk about the positives, the negatives, the ups and downs, the lefts, the rights. At first I was going to skip this, and I was just like, whatever. But I do want to talk about it. And I was reading a lot of comments when it first happened. And you have an avalanche of people being like, oh, see, he's awful. And you have other people that are like, this isn't that big of a deal, whatever. And like saying that this is not a big deal, whatever. And that's what Colin was kind of speaking to about the whole pandering. That is also an equally absurd response to all of this. And so first, let's start off with just the fact that he was speeding 101 miles per hour. That's obviously very fast. And I think it was either over 40 or over 60. So the speed limit, I guess, was either 65 or 55. I'm not 100% sure, but obviously really fast. Now, the reality is he's probably in a really nice car. I assume. I don't think he's driving some rundown car. And it is easy when you're in a nice car, especially if you're on a freeway, to just really get up there in speed. Now, to be fair, he's probably in his entire life has always been driving cars, so he should be used to it. This shouldn't be like a newer experience for him. But if you're driving a Hyundai or something, or or a Lexus, the smoothness of the drive, of how fast you can go, because I was not born and raised driving Lexuses, but one time I drove my friend's car on a freeway, and it was a Lexus, and it was just like, I was like, oh my gosh, look how fast I'm going. I didn't even realize it, because normally my cars start to shake a little bit when I start getting up there in speed. But listen, so that's that. it's obviously bad, especially when we know the history of the NFL, the history of professional athletes in general, of driving fast and getting in, very devastating consequences, whether because they took someone else's life, they took their own life. We know that this is just part of celebrity culture in general, actually. So it's not something that you're just like, oh, whatever, everyone speeds or this or that. And that's what's interesting, because Colin the other day had a whole thing about breaking the rules and how, like, oh, I don't want to hear you guys because it was with an SGA non-call. And he's like, hey, everyone slow rides, doesn't fully stop at a stop sign, and, right, everyone goes the speed limit. I'm sure. And it's just like, well, here we go. Now we have an example of someone not going the speed limit. And the reality is, though, is this. As you guys know, my educational background is in psychology. And, when I worked at the rehab, a lot of people would be like, a lot of patients would sometimes, they always want to challenge you because it's, it's a tough demographic, and they always want to challenge you. And they would be like, how do you know what you're talking about? How do you know anything? So you don't know me. And the reality is this is, especially in like social sciences, but really science in general, but specifically social sciences, is it's a collection of information and a collection of patterns and behaviors that you're able to put together in such massive quantities that it now is able to inform us of future behavior, as well as help us break down what present behavior means. And in a lot of ways, we do this in football or in any sports on a more statistical standpoint. It's like, we see this quarterback, for instance, have a 55% completion percentage. We know, based off of the decades of NFL experience, that that's not good enough. That will not, be good enough to get to the playoffs, win a Super Bowl, whatever it may be. Yeah, we have some outliers here and there, but we know more likely than not that's not going to be good. We know more likely than not, if you have a, too many interceptions per touchdown, that's not good. It's like, yeah, you threw 45 touchdowns, that's really great, but you had 35 interceptions. We know historically that's not good, that's not going to lead to more wins than losses or whatever it is. And in a lot of ways, it's the same way when you're dealing with, more personality, psychological type stuff, however you want to define that, depression, anxiety, more serious mental health stuff like schizophrenia, et cetera, et cetera. It's collecting data, collecting behaviors, collecting all of this information, and then making decisions. And this is what I think fans really struggle with when we talk about like personality issues and some of these other things. They're like, oh, whatever, who cares? If the guy can play, blah, 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 blah. Or, oh, people are exaggerating, they're magnifying this. And the reality is, like, no. The NFL has been around for a really long time. And same thing with just professional sports as a whole. But we'll just stick with the NFL here. And so we do know that, especially at the quarterback position, certain behaviors can fly and certain behaviors don't. Certain personalities can fly, certain personalities don't. We know that. We know what leads, more often than not, leads to a great leader, a great player, wins, losses, playoffs, playoff wins, big moments. Like, we know, we have a great idea of what it takes. And that's why personalities do matter. But and then also over the years, they realized, you know what? It's kind of okay to have a little bit of a looser defensive end, or have someone who's a little bit of a wild card at running back, or wide receiver. But you know what? Not so much at the center. You know what? You really need someone who's really mature as your left tackle. Or, but they realize this. This is over literally decades of experience. And there's always outliers. But we know for, more often than not, what fits and what doesn't. And so that was one of the biggest issues when people saw Shedeur. They're like, yeah, he's pretty good on the field and all that, and he might be able to grow up. But listen, there's some questions about his on-field play, and there are real questions about his personality. And then people try to twist this into a whole thing about celebrities and fame and personalities and race and this and that. And it's like, that's really not what it is. Lamar Jackson has a wildly different personality than Joe Burrow, than Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, but that person, all those personalities can fit for the most part. And I know the other thing that I want to address is people are like, well, Baker Mayfield's good now. Baker Mayfield admitted that he needed to grow up. Those were his words. He admitted that he needed to mature. He admitted that. So again, those are his words. Look it up. He admitted it, because I got in a whole back and forth with someone about Baker Mayfield and who he is today versus who he was before. And people were like, he didn't have to go through any of that. He didn't have to mature, blah, blah. And I'm like, he said it himself. So you're a huge Baker Mayfield fan, and yet you're now denying his own words. Go ride, go walk down that path yourself. I'm not walking down that path with you. And so, these things matter. Being a quarterback is the hardest position in all of professional sports. And you need such deep levels of hunger, of maturity, of discipline. It's not just on the field play. It goes so much above and beyond that, because it's so brutally difficult. Other positions, you can get away with certain behaviors. And when you are so amazingly, brilliantly talented off of pure talent and hard work, like someone like AB is a little bit all over the place, but like he did work hard. You're kind of like willing to put up for it. But with a quarterback, it just becomes incompatible for so many different reasons. And it's a thing. And so when you see something like this, it's another sign of like, he doesn't really 100% get it. Now, to be fair, I also don't think that this is now like, well, now my views of him have completely changed. I think I've been pretty consistent with him. And I am a firm believer, maybe because it is my actual formal educational background. And I played on enough teams and have been around enough leaders, and I've been a leader and I haven't been a leader. It's like, and I played multiple sports as well. So it's just like, I'm able to look at things from many different lenses. I put a ton of eggs in that basket, very much like Colin has this hat forward, hat backwards thing. I don't have a arbitrary cutoff, because I'm sure the most mature, most dedicated person can absolutely have their hat backwards, it is what it is. So, but I do believe in, personality inventories, who you are as a person. I recognize that there's outliers. I recognize that you could be the biggest jerk, and that you could be just a awful, terrible person, but you're a beast and you can ball and you'll win. And I guarantee you there's going to be someone who's going to win a Super Bowl, who's going to win a bunch of Super Bowls, and he's going to be the biggest jerk, and he's going to be like the flashiest, over the top, in your face guy, and he's going to rub people the wrong way, and he's going to be like, I don't care, I'm a beast. It'll bound to happen. But when we look at the modern era of the NFL, it's not happening. It's just not. I mean, look at Tom Brady, look at Manning, look at Patrick Mahomes, look at Jalen Hurts, look at Stafford. It's just, look at the quarterbacks who get to Super Bowls, even that. Look at the Russell Wilsons. Look at how Aaron Rodgers was when he was in his prime. First off, he wasn't even that over the top. Then he got a little bit more over the top, and people are kind of like, I don't really want to deal with this. I don't think this outweighs enough. And when you have someone like a Shedeur Sanders right now, people are like, like, this stuff is both worse than it seems and also not as bad as it seems, in a weird way. There's a lot more to meet the eye than a lot of people, I think, actually understand. But I'm also just not going to 100% bury him in this moment. I'm not going to be like, see, I told you so. This is proof that he's not mature enough. He's not this, that, and the third. And the reality is that other people will say, who are either maybe closer to his age or whatnot, they're like, I made mistakes when I was 22, 23. And it's true, you did. But you were not an NFL quarterback. Like, that's the difference. Yeah, I made worse mistakes than that right there. But I wasn't, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It does matter for Shedeur. Like, when this was first posted, and I saw it on, I forget where, but it was like through ESPN. And I was reading the comments, and people were like, man, is this really news? Man, they just want to do anything to dig, to run his name through the dirt. And it's like, of course this is news. Do you not realize how massive quarterbacks are in the global sports world, but especially American sports? Quarterback is king. That's why they get paid an insane amount of money. It's everything. And Shedeur Sanders is insanely popular. And getting cited for driving over 101 miles per hour, it does mean something. It does mean something. Does it mean everything? No, but it does mean something. It is a check, a check mark on the column of, is he mature enough? Is he grounded enough? Does he get it? Is he willing to put in the work? Is he, and like it, and it is. It just is. I mean, when they talk about people who like can't understand that you're supposed to change your personality or change how you speak, depending on whether you're talking to your friends or you're talking to a CEO or whether you're talking to your boss or, it's just like that people can't accept that you're supposed to wear many different hats throughout your lives. Do you talk to your mom or dad the way how you talk to your boys? Of course not. Of course not. Do you talk to your grandma the way you talk to your boys? Of course not. And so you have to be comfortable accepting that there's different standards of behavior, different standards of outcomes. These things matter. You're right. If he was a 5th round, safety, whose last name was Smith, you're right. This wouldn't be news. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. They would still talk about it. They would have a meeting with him internally, whatever. But like, yeah, it wouldn't matter as much. And they'd be like, bro, come on, what are you doing? And, and then when this happened, my dad told me the story. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was in the NHL. I think he had this massive up-and-coming career, and he was speeding, lost control. Poof. No longer with us. I mean, we already know some of the other horror stories of people whose whole lives, who were about to take off, who were about to make a gajillion dollars, who were about to be larger than life, and they either hit someone or they get in a crash, whatever it is. So these things do matter. It does matter, especially when you're a leader. Maturity matters. Especially when you're the quarterback, not only because it matters so much on the field, but locker rooms are wild, man. They are wild. And as a quarterback, if you're engaging in that wildness, it gets slippery fast. When you have an immature leader, which I've had on teams, like I said, I've talked about this before. There's some teams where I've been the leader, I've been the best team, the best player on a team, and I've been on teams where I was absolutely the worst and just hanging on by a thread, being like, please keep me, please keep me. And I've had great leaders and I've had bad leaders. I've been a great leader. I've probably been an average leader. I don't think I'd ever say I was a bad leader. But when you have an immature leader, it's tough, man. It is. It's tough. It really is this trickle down. And it gets messy. And when you have a mature leader, it changes everything. It's like if you walk into a room and you see trash all over the place, it kind of gives you, it kind of gives you the path to be like, okay, I'll throw trash on the floor. But if you see a clean room and a trash can in the corner, and you have trash in your hand, you're not going to throw it on the floor. You're going to put it in the trash can. And in fact, if you have a clean room and you see a trash can right there and you see a piece of trash on the ground, you'll probably pick it up and put it in there. That's the difference between being a great leader and a bad leader. That's the difference between being mature and immature. So, this will probably be the only video that I make about this. I think, hopefully, if Shedeur Sanders is actually mature, if he is the person that many people hope he is, then this becomes a learning experience, right? Your mistakes become learning experiences. You don't downplay it. You don't fight the world. You don't give lip service. Yeah, I got to be better, blah, 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 blah. You got to actually believe it and feel it. You got to be like, yeah, no, this actually was a mistake on my part. I got to be smarter. I got to be more careful. There's so much at stake here. I got to be smart right now. I mean, it's just, and you grow from it. You grow from it. Usually immature people don't grow from their mistakes. So we'll see what happens here. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Shedeur Sanders, cited for driving 101 miles per hour? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.